And especially thanks for Andy to organize such wonderful event, so we can share the opinion here. So very briefly, I'm actually came from Xinjiang. I'm born and raised in Xinjiang before I go to UK to study. And also my research area focusing on the international security and also the counterterrorism policy. And also because I think in the audience, there are many questions about Xinjiang. So I'm not going to repeat what you guys already said, because you guys already talk about the genocide in the term of the definition and in the term of the practice quite a lot. I'm here to share some of my experience and some of my thought with you guys. So first of all, in my opinion, I think when we talk about so-called genocide in Xinjiang, I think for foreigners outside China, not only the scholar, but also the media and the government, when they look at Xinjiang, there's a problem, is a lack of the first-hand material to research or to know what really happened in Xinjiang. And to follow the international or Western media, we can find this so-called evidence, sometimes based on the unreliable individual statement. Some people offer very bizarre story to try to testify. And some of the evidence are so-called satellite images, which widely used by the media, such as the BBC. But very fast, the Chinese media and the Chinese officials declare that just a forced to read. So in the term of the law, in the legal science, as you guys talked before, I think all of that are really hard to reach the so-called evidence level, evidence standard. And many audience are from the media background. So in the term of the news and the media, I think it is really hard to say that some of the reports did serious fact check. So in the term of the intelligence, I think many of that I could be called as bad intelligence, such as it's just the same as if we look at Iraq and some of the bad intelligence, which leading the some country invading the Iraq, caused a serious consequence. In the term of the academic, I think probably I can say all of that are from second-hand materials. I think many of you teach a student, if one of the, well, I don't know, postgraduate students present an essay on all of the second-hand materials, you'll probably give him or her a fail. So it's really hard to say they reach a certain level of the academic level. And for the Western, I think it is should be more casual on these very sensitive questions. It's very, I think a major problem is here. Some of the Chinese information, some of the information from China are not taken seriously by Western people, not only the media, but also the scholars. Such as if we're talking about genocide today, some of the Chinese side will know the Professor Li Xiaoxia, who's from Xinjiang, and she's read a research report on the population changes in Xinjiang. But that kind of information is never taken seriously by the Western people, because she from China and she is Han Chinese. So some people just jump to the conclusion, wow, it's another Chinese propaganda, but actually it's not. When we're looking at the research or the scholars from Xinjiang, I think we always need to treasure that. They did all those work in a very sensitive way. So I think some of the opinions are very important. So if I would give the Chinese government some of the advice, I think they still need to try to keep the transparency here. And as all of you may know, some of the countries' government officials or media has been invited to Xinjiang and to actually to visit the place, to experience place. But many Western countries have a little problem with here. And also because of pandemic, so those kind of work, I think, has been delayed. So I hope the Chinese government keeps the transparency here and continue to do such work to share the information. And secondly, so I would say how the Western perspectives are formed. I was talking to a US scholar, a scholar from America, and he gave me a quite interesting answer to that. Is that the policy or actually the whole idea about what happened in Xinjiang are actually the result of some of these NGOs, some of the individual third parties are actually lobbying to the US government, Congress, or parliaments in Western countries. So during that process, these lobbyings actually create sense of the political correctness. So many people, including the politicians and also some of the party organizations, they are actually being hijacked, I think, by those kind of political recognitions. Otherwise, it is really hard to explain when we're talking about some of the big companies such as Nike and Coca-Cola, and they try to actually lobby the US government and the US parliament to release some of the acts, and try to get a better condition or better deals here. And thirdly, if we're talking about people talking about the intention here, if you try to prove there is a genocide, what is your intention? So what is really the intention by the Chinese government or the Chinese side? I think some of the scholars just mentioned before is based on the security reason. So some of the Western scholars, US scholars, try to describe that what happened in Xinjiang is nothing about terrorism. It's only the conflict between the different ethnics. And he even mentioned that, well, if we're talking about counterterrorism issues, in the last 10 years, well, Xinjiang do have terrorism issues, but only 3 or 5 cases are linked to the terrorism issues. But if that is the case, then we have difficulty to explain why so many Uyghurs ending up in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and even Syria to join the local terrorism group and to join a so-called global jihad. And so what China do here is not only maintain the security situation in Xinjiang, try to protect its own citizens and try to protect Xinjiang, try to protect even the Uyghur people. But also China did a lot to protect the region security and even the global security. Because some of the case, when I do my studies, some of the suspects even mentioned they try to go abroad. It's nothing to do with Xinjiang. It's nothing to do with China. They try to go to Afghanistan and try to go to Syria to kill American and UK soldiers, to try to invent. And finally, I would like to say, with regarding of the counterterrorism and well, whatever you say is insurgency or national security issues, we always facing the challenges to balance the security issues and also the human rights challenges. To be honest, the counterterrorism issue is a dirty job for all of the country and not protecting anything here. So for all the country, I think we all have the room to do a better works. I think in the media we see quite a lot like what about this? You point finger to me, I point finger to you. but it's not going to leading anywhere, I think. So I'm looking forward to more conversations and also more dialogues, just like today's. I think it's even more meaningful. Thank you all.